Creating custom Pokemon for you! Welcome back, everyone, to the show where we select lucky commenters to spin a series of random wheels that give us factors for a Pokemon that we then create just for you. It's gonna be an awesome episode today, y'all. We have 4 amazing custom Pokemon as always, but before we get started, I do have some quick reminders. First off, if you end up liking today's video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And of course, if you want a custom Pokemon for yourself, all you have to do is leave a comment under this video because I'll be randomly selecting people from this video's comments for the next episode. It's just the most fair that way, everyone has an equal chance, but it also makes it way more important to subscribe with the notification bell turned on, because if you got a custom Pokemon but never saw the episode, you would never even know you got one, which would suck. Don't let it happen to you. Subscribe now. And without further ado, let's get into the first Pokemon. And this one will be for Thump. That's a pretty funny name, and I'm glad you like the series. So alright, Thump, let's start by getting the power level of your Pokemon, and you're going to be a Convergent Evolution. Cool. And it means that now we'll spin this wheel to see what generation of Pokemon we're making a Convergent for, and it's Gen 3. Some say that's the best generation of all time, and I'd have to agree. So now let's spin this wheel that has every single Gen 3 Pokemon on it to see what we're working with, and it's Absol. That's a fan favorite. That's actually really high. And now let's see what new typing we'll be giving to this Convergent Absol. The first type is the Steel type. I can see that working with like a blade on its head or something, and Steel Ground type is interesting. And the last step before we see which Pokemon looks like, let's see if it has an X Factor, and none this time. A lot of people wish Absol had an evolution or even a pre-evolution, and those people will be happy because we decided to make both. The first stage of your Pokemon is Kindle, the Blade Pokemon. These Pokemon are born with very sharp blades on their heads, but as this Pokemon gets older, the blade begins to rust and become more dull. At level 12, it would evolve into Stabsol. These Pokemon are extremely effective at one-on-one combat, with the scimitar-like blade on its head being sharp enough to cut through iron. And because they're so good in battle, long ago, ancient civilizations tried to domesticate these Pokemon to be used in their army. However, Stabsol proved to be too proud of a creature and would never listen to their command. When exposed to a Dusk Stone, it would evolve into Stabsalute. These Pokemon are rarely seen because they only come out in the middle of the night, and they're known to spend most of their time surveying the land for any opponents that it deems worthy of battle. But because this Pokemon is so strong, most opponents aren't worthy, which leaves this Pokemon constantly searching for an equal that doesn't exist. And that's gonna do it for today's first Pokemon. This one was super cool. Not only is an Absol Convergent Evolution a really fun idea, but we also got to make a new pre-evolution and evolution for it, something I know everyone wants, and I did too, so again, this was really cool. It was drawn by Le Petit Arts on Instagram, so make sure to go check them out, and for the shiny, I gave them white skin and blue blades because it looked awesome. That's the only reason. But now let's get into the second Pokemon, and this one will be for Majin Jaren. Glad you liked Pandor, but hopefully you like this Pokemon even more. So alright, Majin, let's start by getting the power level of your Pokemon, and you're going to be a legendary. That is awesome. Now, usually legendary Pokemon don't evolve, but we do still spin this wheel where you have a very small chance to, but you didn't get any. In fact, we still have yet to get any legendaries with an evolution. That's going to be insane when it eventually happens. Now, let's see what typing this legendary Pokemon's going to be. Your first type is the Dark type. That's cool. An evil legendary. And Dark Fighting type. That's actually super cool. And the last step before we see which Pokemon looks like, let's see what its X Factor is, and it's an additional form. That's going to be difficult to do, but it makes your Pokemon even cooler. Long ago, in the ancient city of Atlantis, there lived a heroic champion whose story is a true tragedy. Your Pokemon is Orcade, the betrayed Pokemon. This Pokemon was once the most powerful general in the Atlantean army, a force that sought to take over the entire world's ocean. And this army was mostly successful, using sheer force to conquer all who opposed. But after this time of war, Atlantis slowly changed to a more peaceful nation, and instead of conquering, they instead looked to usher in a new age of peace. And in this new age, Orcade was not wanted. He was a relic of the past, a monster, a bringer of destruction that would not fit with this new vision. And so Orcade was tricked, lured into an ancient chamber, and sealed inside, never to be seen again. And so So Atlantis ushered in a new age of peace with their dark secret buried deep below the waves. Or at least that was until one fateful day when a tectonic shift released Orchid from its ancient prison. Now filled with rage and hate, this Pokemon is ready to conquer not only the ocean, but the entire world. Because not only is Orchid able to deal insane amounts of damage in its base form, but it's also able to deflect any attack in its defense form. A form it would enter anytime it used a non-attacking move, which would see it change forms and gain increased defense stats. Orchid would then exit this form when it used a damaging move, reverting back to its base form and gaining the same boost, but to its attack stats. And that's gonna do it for today's second Pokemon. It's always fun to make a legendary, especially because of the awesome backstories you can give them. And I know the backstory of this Pokemon is pretty complicated, but again, it's super fun, and I think it makes the Pokemon a lot more interesting. It was drawn by Seru Bell on Instagram, so make sure to go check him out. And for the shinies, I made them more blue as a callback to the ocean where it lives. What's up, y'all? We still have 2 amazing custom Pokemon to go, but before we get into those, I wanted to take a quick second to say thank you to my channel members. You might have noticed I've never had a sponsored ad read on the channel before, and that's not due to lack of people reaching out to me. It's more so I just really want to make sure it's a good product if I'm ever pushing it on to y'all. And quite honestly, I haven't found one yet. So the best way to support the series right now is becoming a channel member by hitting the join button down below. And you absolutely don't have to. Just watching my videos is more than enough support. But if you want to take the extra step and support me even further, that is the best way. Again, watching the videos is more than enough, but I would really appreciate it if you look into becoming a channel member by again hitting the join button down below. But now let's get into the third Pokemon. And this one will be for Chase Hullett. I'm glad you and your siblings like the series, Chase. And as always, Chase, let's start by getting the power level of your Pokemon, and you are going to be regular. There is nothing wrong with that. Now let's see how many times your Pokemon can evolve, and you are going to get 2, which makes you a full 3-stage evolution line. Now let's see what typing your Pokemon's going to be. Your first type is going to be the Fire type. That's good. That's one of my favorite types of all time. And Fire Dark type. I like that. And the last step before we see which Pokemon looks like, let's see if it has an X Factor, and it is none this time. The first stage of your Pokemon is Slacky, the Lackey Pokemon. These Pokemon are naturally attracted to power and are known to follow around the strongest Pokemon that they can find, essentially becoming their minion. At level 20, it would evolve into Serprentis. These Pokemon are blindly loyal to their trainers, fully supporting and fighting for them whether they're good or completely evil. At level 37, it would evolve into Usurpant. Unlike their previous evolutions, these Pokemon are straight up evil and not loyal to anyone. In fact, they're even known to attack their own trainers in an effort to free themselves from being under anyone's control. And that's gonna do it for today's third Pokemon. I love how this line turned out. I'm especially proud of the names. I know my names can be pretty mid sometimes, but Usurpant, come on, that's fire. And also always like making villain Pokemon. Any Pokemon that seem like they would be on the main villain of the game's team are always super fun to make. And for their shinies, I made them green because I just picture them as evil warlocks, and green seems to fit with that. But now let's get into the fourth Pokemon. And this one will be for Vaporeon 2010. I've actually thought about making an evolution for the Cosmic type. Let me know in the comments if you think I should. So alright, Vaporeon, let's start by getting the power level of your Pokemon, and you are going to be regular. Nothing wrong with that. Now let's see how many times your Pokemon can evolve, and you're going to get 1, which makes you a 2-stage evolution line. Now let's see what typing your Pokemon's going to be. Your first type is going to be the Rock type. That is cool. That is my favorite type of all time, if you didn't know. And Rock Fire type. That's cool. And the last step before we see which Pokemon looks like, let's see if it has an X Factor, and you do a signature ability. That's high. This Pokemon is said to hail straight from the forge of Mount Olympus. The first stage of your Pokemon is Hephaestus, the Molten Pokemon. Legend says that these Pokemon were created straight from the forge of the Greek god Hephaestus, and its molten rock skin allows it to survive near active volcanoes, with its main battle technique being using moves like Rollout to launch its molten body towards enemies, burning burning them to a crisp. When exposed to a Firestone, it would evolve into Therotonic. These Pokemon are extremely powerful and can intimidate most enemies with a simple glare that leaves them frozen in fear. Its signature ability is called Forged Different, which causes it to intimidate all other Pokemon while also being immune to intimidation itself, which shows its true godly power. And that's gonna do it for today's fourth Pokemon. Again, a super fun fire-type line, and I especially like the Greek god inspiration behind the design, because if you didn't know, I'm a huge Percy Jackson nerd, so anything like that really makes me happy. For the shinies, I went with a blue color because anytime a fire type has fire on their body, you gotta make it blue because it always looks awesome. And that's gonna do it for today's episode, y'all. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe before you go, and if you want to watch more episodes, there's a bunch in this playlist. I'm gonna get right back to making custom Pokemon. I'll see y'all in the next episode, but until then, peace.